Guys off mute,
Okay.
so we should.
Good morning. I now call to order the special meeting of the Indianapolis Public Library Board of Trustees. Russell, would you please call the roll?
Peterman, present. Dr. Murtada,
Present.
Palacio is absent. Dr. Riolo,
Present.
Dr. White,
Present.
President Trippett.
Present.
Have a quorum.
The chair sees a quorum. I am now adjourning this special meeting of the board and convening a public hearing. The purpose of the meeting is to consider the 2025 library budget as advertised on August 2nd and August 9th, 2024 in the Court and Commercial Record and the Indianapolis Star. To make our budget materials and presentation, to make our budget presentation, Ms. Lolita Campbell, the CFO, and Mary, will now invite you to make that presentation.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Rankin.
Okay. Today I will present the 2025 budget. On this slide, you will see our mission or vision. So can you please go to the next slide? And this is our budget calendar. And June, I presented a high-level assumption to the board committee. And today I'm presenting the 2025 budget. And then on the 26th, it will move to the board for your approval. And then on September the 18th, I will do a presentation to the Unicorp as well. And then the remaining of the schedule is the regular schedule that usually the whole process. And then we receive our final budget January 2025 approval, final approval January 2025. Here is our strategic plan. You'll notice that we extended it from the 2023 to 2024. The priorities are still the same. And this is library at a glance for 2023. If you compare this to 2022, you'll see in every category that everything has increased. It's great. This is our proposed 2025 budget. For the operating is 62.1 million. And it is about 5.92% increase from last year, a little bit over 3.5 million. This our debt service is a little lower because we've been paying off our bonds. And then our rainy day is still the same as it was last year, but we did decrease the LERF by half because when we looked at our trends, we wasn't using that much LERF, so we decided to reduce it here and move that revenue into the operating. So for a total of 85.9 million, again, for the operating is 5.92% increase, but for overall is 3.63 increase. Anyone have any questions about the proposed 2025 budget?
Just a quick question. The LIRF, the Library Improvement Reserve Fund, you said we weren't using as much of it. How has it been used in the past?
Well, you use it for a one-time spend if you need it for like capital or building improvements or repairs or something like that, that is not included in our bonds project or any other capital project. So this would be something new that we would need. Instead of using our operating funds, we'll use the LIRF.
I
Any other questions?
So we don't need that much because we've not used it in the past,
Yes,
and that was recommended as with due consultation.
yes.
I was just thinking about the different kinds of things we've had to repair with different facilities, and that's always covered by our bonds.
It has been. And it was just reduced by $125,000. You're welcome. Any other questions? I'll go into more detail as we move on to the next slide. This is the tax rate history. You'll see for the 2025, where for the debt service, we're predicted to be at 0.0318. This year we're at 0.0317. And then for operating, we're predicted our percentage will be 0.096 for a total 0.1278 total tax rate.
Lolita,
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about these rates, the tax rates? It looks like the debt service, we're back to where we were 2 years ago. Operating is up and tax rate, oh, the total tax rate is up. Are these changes related to changes in assessed value? Or, do you know?
Yes. Well, first for the debt service, that is for the bonds. So it's the total amount of bonds we go after or try to receive, and that puts our debt services at that certain rate. Last year, we just missed it by very little, 0.002%. So this year, we're predicted to be at 0.0318, and the operating our tax assessed value, is $100 per
Sure.
assessed value. So it's predicted that there may be an increase, but well, we're just forecasting right now.
Okay. So our property values have gone up.
Yes, for Marion
And
County.
since our
yes.
property values have gone up, our tax rate is lower
Right,
because there's.
but we do have a property cap, then which I'm gonna go over,
Mhm.
and then the levy fees
Sure.
that we'll go over as well.
Okay,
So that does affect everything else.
thank you.
You're welcome. This is our 2025 budget focus, to invest in health and wellness through innovative programs, resources, and collaborations, develop a culture of racial equity by using DEI structure, building capacity, building capacity to meet the needs of the community, and continue to increase collaboration with the Share System Partnership, and adapt library services and leverage technology to improve services to patrons. And also retain and recruit a talented, diverse, and exceptional skilled workforce, and provide a welcome, inclusive, accessible, and safe environment to at all branches location, community support and partnerships.
Can I ask one question?
Uh-huh.
This is all inclusive and I like that everything's in here. We are in the middle of a strategic planning process.
Yes.
So is there any kind of flexibility with foci, or assuming that the strategic plan means you do your regular operations plus?
Mhm.
So is there flexibility for that?
For the budget focus, yes. Our budget would be based on what our finalized strategic plan will be. This is just an overview of what we're currently focused on right now. Cool. So, yes.
It seems like there's some redundancy here, looking at building capacity to meet the needs of the community, and then community support and partnerships. Can you differentiate between the two?
So, you said building capacity to meet the needs of the community?
Yeah, building capacity to meet the needs of the community, and then community support and partnership. Would you differentiate the two?
I believe when we say support, that's different, if I can get that out, it differs the two because of the support, community support.
I can, let me try to answer the first one, building capacity to meet the needs of the community. When it talks about budget focus, that is staffing mainly, trying to increase our staffing to hopefully meet the needs of our community. That's what that goal is.
Okay, then, yes, thank you, great.
Dr. Palacio,
Oh, I'm sorry.
thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well, so I want to apologize if I don't feel like I'm out here.
No problem. Where does the good wages initiative fall into the focus or categories?
If you give me like a couple more minutes,
Okay. Thank you.
it's on the next, maybe 2 slides now.
Thanks.
But would it be part of that third?
Yeah,
but
It would be
the
part of
third-
that as
uh-huh.
well,
Okay,
yes. That's what that, and we could have worded it differently, but that's what that means right there, wages for staff.
so some of our revenue challenges is the MLGQ, which is the maximum levy growth potent cap, which is at 4% for the 2025. And this is where there's an increased property tax cap. And so when there's personal income growth and there's the state has a 6-year average and they put a cap so it wouldn't, everyone's property taxes wouldn't get outrageous, so they put a cap of 4% there. And that will also hinder us as much property taxes we receive for our revenue. And then the impact of circuit breaker estimate of 17% of the levy in 2024. That is, it's like a tax credit. So we put a cap and then we also say, hey, we're gonna give you a tax credit, and that also affects our property tax revenue. And of course, we didn't have a growth in the levy freeze amount as well. And then the lack of comparable shares of lit certified shares when you compare us to other counties in Indiana. They get a higher percentage, and of course, we only get a very little small percentage of our lit shares. And some of our expenditure challenges is increasing personnel costs due to increase in capacity, meaning like positions, we have more positions coming up. And then meeting the demands of e-resources. Lack of flexibility due to high fixed costs. And increasing ongoing costs with technology and trends towards software as a service. Increased needs for costs for security. I left security in there, although we have an LSAs now, but the way security costs have risen, I kept that in there just in case we have to have more security for 2025. And increasing cost building cleaning services. We noticed that that has been increasing as well. So for the operating fund,
look, Melita,
Oh, I'm
I'm sorry, I want to ask one other
Uh-huh.
question, and this may be just for the record, because I know we talked about it. But the comparable share of outlet, which is local income tax certified share compared to other Indiana libraries, what is that? Do you know generally how we differ?
yes, I don't have it in front of me, but like for Hendricks County, Hamilton County, they may get 20% and 15%. And there's one county, they may get like 30%, but we only receive 1/10% of our lit shares. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then one other thing I'll just note, and I think Lolita described that, but every year, the maximum levy growth quotient, is usually around 6%. Is that right?
No, it was 4% last year.
Well, that's because it's been capped, but I'm saying if it were normally,
Yeah.
moving with the way that income grows, I thought it was around
6 or 7%, but
But-
because of the cap.
Again, because of the growth in our property values, the General Assembly has passed legislation to limit that growth to 4%, at least for last year and this year. So that is unusual. The circuit breaker we've been living with for almost 20 years now, but that growth quotient, maximum levy growth quotient cap is definitely something new. Thank you.
So, for operating, this shows our 2023 actuals and our 2024 adopted budget and our 2025 proposed budget. As you can see, there was an increase for the 2025 proposed budget. And if you look at the 2023 actual and our 2024 adopted budget, our revenue, we're still within, say, still flat from what we had on our actual. So we're hoping that our revenue will increase a little bit for our proposed budget. And then if you look at the expenditures, we were very good stewards of our revenue. So our actuals was a little low, 49.7, which is great. Our proposed budget is 58.6 million, and we predicted that we're gonna be probably just as flat as we were in 2023, hopefully. If we did have some increases in other expenses, but hopefully we stay within that. And so for the 2025 proposed budget is 62.1 million. We're not predicting with the increase in positions and utilizing a good wage initiative, which our personnel cost is going to increase more. So that's why we having a little bit more money, a little bit more expenses for the proposed budget.
Question.
Uh-huh.
When you looked at that particular item in terms of the really increase in compensation for personnel, this was a collaborative discussion with representation from the employees,
From the employees or,
the union organization.
no, this is just a
This
budget.
is just a budget
Yeah,
projection.
proposed budget projection. So we still have time to talk about the increasing wages and our merit increase, good wage initiative. We still have time to talk about that. This is what I have to get to the city county, the Munich Corp to
Right.
make a presentation. And I have, increased our budget to hopefully to encompass all that.
But once you get that figure and you get it through city council, you lock in the range of where you're gonna go in that area, right?
Right, so when we come down to talking to the union or the staff association, I know where we have to be, and then with the negotiation, I know where I'm capped at. Any other question? Yes, so here's the operating fund expenses, so for personnel. Depending on how things go, I'm predicting that maybe our raises would be from 2.5% to 4%. This is what, how we negotiate with the $18 good wage initiative and any other negotiations that we need to do as far as what you call that? The compression and everything else. So yeah, so and then we have the health insurance increase. So we're still in negotiation, and right now it's a little bit higher than the 7%. So I'm trying to get it down to the 7%. So and then our supplies, and this is increased due to our PC refresh, and then other services and charges, and then our capital outlays. I don't want to be redundant, repeat the same things, but that's the increase in security, building cleaning services, and increase in conferences, because we're also direct paying those now for our staff. So we're predicting that might be a little increase as well. Yes.
Dr. Palacio.
So I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
So what I'm hearing is that the 2.5% to 4% is basically to address depression.
No, the 2.5% to 4% is the merit increase, or raises, our yearly raise. So it really depends on how we get the $18 good wage initiative completed. If we're able to address the compression, and this will predict, where I can provide a merit raise, either be 2.5% to 4%. So it really depends. Last year we got 4%.
How are you addressing the compression?
We're still working it out. It's a difficult
Okay.
thing. We might have to do it in phases, so.
Right, and the other question is, in that other table, we're seeing a gap between revenue and expenses. How's that address this? That gap, and I know it's not all actual.
Mhm. You mean, two
It's like
slides back
4
when there was,
million.
more expenses than revenue?
Right, but it's kind of
Yeah.
increasing.
I was. Give me about 2 more slides.
Okay.
Okay. Then I show that we're gonna use some of our reserves to cover the difference of, the expenses to the revenue. So, yeah. Here is our debt service funds. Here you'll see where we, applying for our 2024 bond of 6.3 million, to help with our capital maintenance projects. And the remaining of our bonds that we still have available, and that, we still have projects that we're scheduled to get finished with those, old bonds. And this, when we predicted to have our bonds paid off on the next line where it says budget year, but paid off time. So we're working on, paying off our debt. And then update for the branch projects, we have the Fort Bend that we opened, of course, in August of 2023. Glendale, we opened this year in March of 2024. Then North Timstiff is February 2025, as well as Pike, March of 2025, and then the Curve. Border for 2025. So here is the rainy day and alert. So the rainy day, which is still at 1 million, and this is what we can use for our capital projects for consultants, engineer, legal fees, or anything like that. And this is where I say with alert where it's not related to a capital project with the bonds, but also not in our operating related to our capital. So we'll use that funds to cover that $125,000. So then the long range plan, this is where I would show the remaining deficit, where we use our reserve funds to cover that difference. And as you can see, as we predicted, that we're utilizing our reserves each year as we continue to grow and expenses continues to grow as well. Any questions?
It's a red flag, but
Yeah.
Can
more
you,
than a question.
yeah,
It is a red flag, but again, this is a long range prediction. And if you look in the history, we have always did well with being good stewards, and we have always put more money into our reserves. Our beginning reserves fund is 41.3 million. If you recall when from Pro, when they did a presentation, they say our reserves have increased, and this would increase to 41.3 million. It was at maybe 38 million. So every year we have been putting back into the reserves like 1 to 2 million or more. But when you just look at this proposed budget, it looks like we have to use some of our reserves. So we're hoping that being good stewards that we won't have to use the reserves, but we have to show it this way based on the proposed budget.
So I know that we talked about having a healthy reserve, that it
Yes.
was that a fund balance, for example, of 41 million almost covers
About 75%.
75% of our budget.
So with this, and when we use our $18 good wage initiative, maybe handle some of the compression and any other positions that we need to fill, then this fund balance may lower next year because we're trying to, cover all this. However, in 2026, we may be able to maintain this. This is just a prediction.
And these projections do these projections also include growth in wages or
Yes.
over this period?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Biederman.
Thank you very much. So I know this is the 2024 adopted budget that's in the first column here.
Mhm.
How are we tracking as far as the unspent appropriation? I know we have it projected at 3%. Are we above the 3% right now? As far as what's unspent?
Yes, if doing the treasury report,
Mhm.
you can see where we're kind of trending to. So right now, yes, we're trending to the unspent amount.
Are we trending to 3 or are we above?
Maybe a little bit above, just a little bit.
Thank you.
Dr. Velazquez.
So I wanted to follow up with, a question about the healthy balance. What would a healthy balance be?
Typically, they recommend at least 50% of your revenue, and right now we're at 75%. And it's been that way for a while, you know, the library has been very conservative, and which is great.
So using that as a guide, just looking at, and I'm sorry, I'm just seeing these numbers, but, in the outer years, our general, the beginning fund balance is what we're calling our reserve, right?
Mhm.
So thinking about that being half of total expenditures, right? So if we're gonna use that as a guide, we start to fall below that, as early as, oh, we got 65 and then 34. And we immediately go to that, right? Oh, that's for 2026, I'm sorry.
About these decreases, yeah.
And the decreases happen when you see that the revenue, well, expenses exceed the revenue. However, again, the library has been good stewards and we have always fell below our revenue. But this is just a proposed budget as a tool to monitor our expenses.
Any other questions?
Is it safe to say that this is, I know you say it's a projection. But the probability that this happens is very low. Considering that you said that you're good stewards of the funding.
When you say very low, you mean that utilizing our reserve to cover the deficit?
Right.
It is kind of low, but I don't want to say it would never happen.
Right.
Yes.
So one other question. So in what would be different ways that, other than, obviously there are 2 ways to do it, right? Either you get more revenue or you spend less, right?
Mhm.
What are some of the ways that the library could get more revenue?
To get more revenue?
Yeah.
So as you know that our foundation, they support us as well, so we get revenue from them. If we can get more in our lit, that is great. We've been fighting that for a while, so I don't know, we will. If we get more in our property taxes.
So can we camp on the lid for a moment?
Yeah.
And can you, since we're in the context of the public hearing budget, just go through what those options are, what they look like, and different ways that people that might be interested could advocate for a change to that.
To the lit. So again, our surrounding counties receive more lit in percentage than us in Marion County. And they receive between 15% up to 30%, and we receive 0.1%. So yes, we can advocate for more, reach out to our counselor members, show them the difference of how we're not receiving adequate amount compared to our surrounding counties. Write letters to them, things that Greg and I are doing now. We meet with them. We had several meetings with different council members, advocating for more lit. Some are very positive. We just don't know if it's gonna happen this year or next year. We just don't know.
And so just to reiterate a little bit, it's it'd be in the control of the city county council, how much lit we get.
Yes, yes, and we are a part of the pie, so we're part of the schools, the police, the firemen, you know, all of them, so. I'm not saying that we're just not important as everyone else in that pie, but we just asking for a little bit, not a little bit more, not to take away from everybody else who gets the increase.
And so we're doing this, even increasing the amount, and everyone's done a great job, increasing our collaboration with the shared system with certain school libraries.
Yes,
And we're doing that even though we're not getting any larger percentage of the lit
right,
than other people that share with it that we're providing services to.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Lolita, how much is 1/10 of 1% of lit? What do we get?
We get 3.8 million
3.8?
is our, and we should say lit is local income tax.
Sure.
Those don't
Right,
know that, and that has been stable for years.
We haven't received an increase in.
And then, yeah, the supplemental we get on top of that, which is kind of a true up from when people actually file their taxes.
mhm,
And that has been very low. In the neighborhood of like 80,000.
okay, so that's eligible. So if we were, I'm just trying to look at, I just quickly, we're doing about 7% deficit. So maybe 26, it looks like 10.
And it's important to, I would point out that these expenditures are a do not exceed. So, you know, they have to have some emergency money set aside within this budget, because otherwise you have to go back to the city county council, which would, to my knowledge, I don't know that we've ever had to do that.
Yeah, we have not. So,
And our utilization of our budget has been about 97%.
Yeah.
And we normally spend about 97%. And then, again, just for context, the discussions about lit increase, have you talked about it being double where we are? Or-
well, we try to be conservative and we ask for a 0.5% every year increase. We also, one of the council members said, well, maybe we can do 1% and then 2%, but these are all just conversations. So
Mhm.
in 2018, the same conversation happened and they was ready to do an increase. And then it was no conversation after that. So I don't know. I wasn't here at that time. I just know it was put on hold and nothing else happened. Okay.
One other tool that Lolita didn't pass on would be the potential of moving some of your traditional operating costs to some of your debt service. So that would be, that you have issued debt over each year, that's always gone to capital projects. There are opportunities to use some of that debt issuance for traditional operating expenses, but that offsets your capital improvement project. But
Right.
so there's give and take there. That was one of the options not discussed. So that would be the other way to potentially offset your expenses and moving some of those from, annual operating expenses to debt issuance. That's a tricky balance because it has to meet certain tests. to be-
Yeah, it has to meet some criteria.
But there is opportunities there, but it would be, foregoing capital improvement projects. So that's, but that's always a give and take that happens through that project. But that would be another way by which you could decrease your expenses.
That's the part I'm also.
Doc-
That's
Dr.
part of-
Mercado?
That's part of the concern I have. It's almost like yes, we're being conservative, but what ways have we actually thought about making sure that our expenditures are decreased? Making sure that our staff gets the salaries that they deserve,
Mhm.
making sure that we're advocating for more lit. It seems as if the language of we're being conservative is great, but the actual opportunities to think differently about the debt service, about different things. It's like, we're just moving along with the way that we have. And that doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it's really giving us an opportunity to think differently about how we're operating. It always worries me whenever I see, hey, look, our revenue challenges and our expenditure challenges are not within this range. I understand the 97% range and we've got this, but even when our legal counsel said that there are opportunities for us to think differently about our debt service, I'm thinking that, what are we really doing to move forward in that way?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Batata. Honestly, this is ongoing. We do it every month when we review our financials. So we determine if we need to, if there's a capital expense that needs to be moved to the bonds. We have bond meetings every month. We review we met with the council for the lead. So this is something ongoing. It's not like we've been conservative as far as not moving forward and thinking differently. As we've been conservative on what our expenses are, trying to stay within our ways, but we're also looking in a holistic way of how can we receive more revenue, how can we move more monies around. So this is ongoing. It's not like once a year we're doing the budget time. This is every month that we reviewing our expenditures and determine what's the best route to move things around. Maybe it could be investing some of our monies in the bank to increase, earn more interest because the interest rate decides. So we're looking at different ways of doing things. So it's just not stagnant, but we are conservative as far as how we spend our money, but we are reviewing how we can make more, increase our revenue.
Yeah, and I would add also, just to reiterate what the leader said, we do make sure that our meetings that we have with moving money from our operating to our debt service to be able to free up some funds. So thank you, Lolita. That is ongoing stuff that we do on a regular basis.
I think the big thing that we have to keep in mind is that we're not autonomous. We are part of a whole. And that whole has politics in it. The library system is an entity that's a dependent entity in that whole process. And there are priorities maybe for public safety and other areas that really take priority over the library. But in going through the dynamics of this, I still believe, and I'm glad they're meeting with different counselors, that percentage-wise, compared to surrounding counties, we're not even in the ballgame. But we generate so much more because of our property taxes per se. And it looks like almost like we're greedy because we're very, very very, very wise and we're very conscious of staying within the confines of the budget. And because of that, we have discipline per se. And sometimes you get penalized for that, but there are so many dynamics involved and you can't overlook politics. And so it's very important that we have a line of communication to different counselors, understanding that their votes can make a big difference, but you got to have that particular open line, and you must demonstrate what the needs are greatest. And dealing with our personnel needs and what have you, that's really the engine of what we do. It's a people type of operation, and having an initiative to increase the pay and make it more equitable for different employee groups is very, very important. And that's one of the areas that I think that counselors listen to more so than talking about equipment or other services. They look at that because they understand the dynamics of personnel. But I would say that we are conservative and we have a great history of doing an outstanding job in this whole area. From the bonds right on down, when we retire a bond, we make sure that if we take on another project, we don't increase the rate overall. We replace a retiring bond with a new type bond, so the level doesn't go up. So we've been very responsible, and so I would encourage you to continue the open lines of communication. Keep pushing, because our personnel services and what have you are not gonna get any less. And quite frankly, with the inflation and how cost of living and everything else, we have to keep pushing to compensate our employees in a way that will allow them to do their jobs effectively and take care of their livelihood. So I just think that you've done a great job, but I hear what my colleagues are saying. I understand those particular points. And it goes back to my friend Mitch Daniels. When in the school district used to have some leeway and liberty about setting certain tax limits, but the state really collared all of that, and they really have put all of us in a dependent situation. And so, of course, our president knows this because she's with state government, and she knows the shackles they put on to keep entities at a certain level. But I guess my remarks are to commend you for how you are working under the confines that we're under, and to encourage you to keep those lines of communication open, because you never know who's listening. It only take a majority vote to get some certain things through. So, but you gotta have a good rationale when you go. You can't just be talking because we need this, other people are getting this. You gotta have a good rationale. So
Right.
keep those lines open. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Questions?
Just,
Dr. Palacio?
thank you. Just want to echo Dr. White's, thanks for all you do. I think for me, it's about, I mean, the good wages initiative is important, but it's what Dr. White said about people who are coming here every day having enough to pay their bills, basically, and more, right? So even though we're working with the confines, we're being conservative. I think that what I'm hearing is a consensus of how do we expand that confinement so that we can be more attentive to our people who are working here every day. I come here the 0.1% that everybody else is working, right? So but what I'm trying to get to is how can our voices be of help and support in this endeavor? And I think, I mean, being election year, and maybe if it's not the right election year for some counselors, then maybe another one, but it's a good point that if we push this envelope and we're using our reserves, then we are taking matters into our own hands, and then we're saying, hey, we're taking a hit here, help us recover, because this is important. And then close that loop with the politics, say, these are the people who will be voting or not voting for you. Right, so. But he said it much more eloquently.
Then I've been doing some quick calculations, thinking about, but of course they say, thinking about any increases in the local income tax allocation, and how that would reduce our deficit. I think I'm thinking about, the fact that we want to be around that 50%. We've got about 25% of our fund balance to look at. And then it looks like we don't really dip below that until I think I said around 2027. So I just want to draw that out. And then also if we were to perhaps if we were to go, or receive at some point 0.2%, that would wipe out most of the deficit. So there's something else to kind of, contextualize the reduction, the possibility for contextualizing the deduction. Okay.
Yeah, 27, I put it right about what, 48%?
Mhm. I was just looking at amounts, I didn't get to calculating percents, but yeah. So I also want to say thank you for this presentation and for the work that you do. I know this year has been especially heavy. So we're appreciative always of your work. Are there any other questions about Dr.
No.
Matalas?
Not a question at all, just a comment. I really appreciated, your clarification about the community piece. This is very, very, very minor. You might want to have some consistency in the way that you set up the budget focus items. Like it has community support, but all of that start with the idea of action, investing in, developing, building, continuing, adapting, retaining, providing. Then it says community. You might want to do something with that that speaks to what that is. It's partnerships for what? Are we increasing partnerships? Are we continuing building partnerships? Something that aligns with the rest of the text there.
Okay.
Or even maybe to Greg's point about the staffing, building capacity via staffing and promote and supporting community engagement, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board? If not, we'll move on to invite public comments from the audience. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment? Thank you.
Mike,
I saw Mr. Torres. Just to know, we haven't traditionally had any kind of time limit at the budget hearings. We don't typically have a lot of people speak, but just as a guide for you, in our normal meetings, we ask people to manage their testimony to 5 minutes. So if you would be mindful of that, when you come, please come forward and state your name for the record and share your comments with us.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Michael Torres. I'm a public service associate at Central Library. My comment about the budget is I think it's a great initiative, and I commend our CFO for bringing up this issue about the good wage initiative. I mean, it's a noble idea that we're trying to lift our workers up to possibly a living wage, closer to a living wage. Like with that, I hope that when we have our discussions that how the money is dispersed is fair. Because when I'm saying we're talking about capacity and building staff, you know, if we're concerned about, if our focus is on public service to the community, then I want to make sure that, you know, the listing that was in previously listed in last month's budget review, there's a lot of new positions. And as far as I can see, there's a few, there's not as many as in public service. So if, we need to support those issues with the support staff, management, and a direct public service. It's nice to have that balance if we're really going to be concerned about direct service to the community. And I'm glad and I'm hoping that we will be flexible on when these decisions are made. And as far as compression, we have taken into consideration many times moving people up to the bottom. Last years, we finally did address the issues of people who had been here for more than 10 years and plus, which was great. I hope that we can look at the people who are caught in between, because I have a feeling that those might be the people who we need to really retain. Those might be the people that are leaving. if they're here for a couple years and they're not seeing their wages or benefits going up, that, you know, they'll seek out other employment. So I'm hoping that we can really consider those categories and everything. And again, I think it's a great idea to lift all our workers to a better wage. And I think that's what I wanted. And I'm glad we're gonna have this conversation, and I hope we can work some things out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Would- Yes, Dr.
My question is to Ray. Ray has the personnel area done a study on looking at the years of service and the ones leaving in certain years, like between 5 and 10 or 2 and 10, so that we could have a justification for looking at that seriously. Because as we are training people for other locations, we're wasting money.
Yeah.
And so we can't afford that, but we probably need a little study, so we can have a justification for supporting what Michael's talking about, because I know exactly what he's talking about, and we can't be a penny wise and a dollar foolish on this. I mean, when you train people and they have expertise and they walk out the door, you got to start over. Eventually, that costs you more than giving them the additional increase they need to support their families.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't hurt for the board to see that kind of data as we consider just what's what. And I'm sure that Michael and his team can help with that in that particular area. But I would like to see that, because patterns like that tells you, you know, what you need to do or should be doing. And there are some good things happening. I want to see us continue to build on that. And I want to commend Greg and Michael for clear communication. I think you guys have done a good job of talking to each other. And we need to have a motto of no surprise on either end. And once you have that understanding, you avoid a lot of personnel issues. So that's my 2 cents worth.
I think it's a point well taken, Eugene, because that training and well, it's actually professional development and investment in people who have been here for a number of years. We don't want to lose them because they're not being given the kind of salary. So that idea of a study of it makes great sense. It also speaks to the idea of the salary compression, with people at the top levels making a lot more money and the people in the middle and lower levels getting small increments. And we say this percentage across the board, but that impacts those two, because they're not making the same kind of significant impact per percentage of salary. And so your point is an important one, and a study of that could really yield some information about how salary compression, as well as the tenure of individuals who've been here for a while. 5 to 10 years is a great period.
Dr. Palacio.
Do we have any preliminary data on this about how much, if we're gonna do compression in this budget, how much it would cost?
Yes, we're working on it, trying to figure out what that amount would be, depending on the position and the pay grade number. And how far they are from the $18 and compared to the other position numbers. So we have came up with a lot of calculations. However, I don't want to disclose the amount, but it is in the budget.
It is already in the budget.
It's in the budget for 2025, and we kind of put
It's
something
already-
for 2024 as well, thinking that we're gonna implement it much sooner. So,
So it's already included in the prediction or projection.
for 2024 or 2025.
25.
It's in the 2025 projection. Yes, we have that included. But it's just an estimate, but I did put some money in there.
And is that estimate carried out for the long range?
Yes,
estimate? Okay.
hopefully to have it implemented. So I hate to say a date because we haven't, came up with the last final decision. Want to be at the beginning of 2025, if not sooner.
I think one thing that I want to, from my observation and experience on the board, I think to a member that the board absolutely supports the Good Wage Initiative. And as a matter of fact, I think those figures are old. They're getting old.
Yeah.
And in terms of everybody being able to pay their bills, we're still running behind. We're running behind where we should be. So I understand the tension. Maybe that's what I'm feeling, the tension between the need to take care of our employees, to be a workplace of choice. And also just thinking about the feasibility of it and the sustainability of it. One other thing that I wanted to note is that I also hope that we are being mindful of our technology needs and expansion. I like to think of us as like the library. The library is the information superhighway. And so to do that, I think we should also be well equipped for the technology, but whether it's infrastructure or expanding tools. So I also hope that we are being mindful of that as we budget going forward. And the other thing is that it helps us to equipping our employees and equipping our workforce, our team with the tools they need, helps us to provide better service to the community and the people we serve. So I would say that's a close second, definitely second to thinking about how we deal with our compensation. So are there any other questions or oh, wait a minute. Actually, I've jumped back to the board. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak as a part of the public hearing? Okay. So if there are no more comments, then I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
In a second? Second. The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will now have a roll call to approve closing the public hearing.
Peterman, approved. Dr. Mutata,
Approved.
Dr. Palacio, approved. Dr. Riolo,
Approved.
Dr. White,
Approved.
President Kerbal.
Approved.
Motion passes.
Thank you.